Would everyone please rise? We'll be led in prayer by Alderman Darrell Wilson, please.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in all our deliberations. Give us the strength and the wisdom to lead by example as the people's representatives, and that the peace and harmony will be marked all our proceedings, and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of our community. Amen.
Amen. Alderman Grant Neuendorf, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. The first item on our agenda this evening is citizen comment general. I declare that open, and we did put out a sign-up sheet, and the first person to sign up for that is Mr. Brian Kobolars.
Thank you, Brian Kovalar, 16 Hobart Avenue. I may ask to extend my remarks just slightly to fit all of this in. I jotted some notes when Wendy was doing her presentation. Very, very good presentation, exceptional, and directly to the point. However, just for historical purposes, I think that this council should be aware. In the early 2000s, the state had a similar program. New Haven had their cultural district, so did other cities throughout the state. However, the funding went away. So when the city council considered something like this back, I believe it was in 2008, they decided not to pursue it because there was no funding. So in 2009, after a year's worth of work with city planner, city manager at the time, etc., we ended up introducing a resolution to the city to form the Chelsea Arts District. This did have a map. It did have a mission. We can go back and pull up the resolution and see exactly what was there. It tied in directly with the strategic plan that was given to the downtown NRZ, which was a state program at the time. Once we had that in place, the NRZ ended up forming a website, developing a website that included all the different venues within the city. It included restaurants with the menus, galleries, links to different arts organizations, a listing of all the different tourist things that were going to be in the downtown, and especially links to individual artists in a gallery. So anybody that was involved in the arts in downtown had a profile, a link to their work, so that this way they could be exposed to the greater community. There was also a calendar of events, and of course the map, which ended up being revised a year later to include part of Church Street, so that this way artworks that was up there would be able to end up being included within the district. The website was so good, Rose City Renaissance wanted to take it over before they ended up dissolving. And they wanted to use it as a fundraiser. Also in July 2010, organized the first ever multicultural festival in the city of Norwich down in Brown Park, a day-long event that was tied the day after the Dragon Boat Festival that I was co-chairing at the time. I'm going to run out and I'm 3/4 of the way through. When the buzzer goes off, please let me know if I can extend. We also did proposals into the Sagem Fund for an art park on the Triangle. John, you recently received a copy of that. This was going to be directly across from the Transportation Center, American Ambulance, etc. Permission to exceed slightly?
I see no objection. Please go ahead.
Okay. Unfortunately, the funding for that didn't come through. The downtown plan shortly thereafter was moved to NCDC by the council when NCDC wanted to end up being the tip of the spear for development in downtown Norwich, with the transportation center essentially taken care of. That removed our responsibility. And due to whatever actions or inertia being lost, that didn't happen, didn't move forward past that point. Jason came to me years later and ended up saying, Brian, you were right. Public art is the key to developing the downtown, bringing culture in and advertising it. This was a marketing program that was available for free to every single organization and individual artists. Most importantly, this entire set of initiatives was done by community members, by artists, for the city of Norwich. We never collected any money for any of it. This came strictly as a volunteer effort. Funding is extremely important. We never got a dime. But I do hope that as you consider a cultural district in the future, that you end up looking at what was done with the Chelsea Arts District. And instead of creating something new, 80% of the work was already done. We just need to revive it. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rodney Bowie.
Good evening, Rodney Bowie, 62 Roosevelt Avenue. I got recently called to an apartment house I own up on Boswell Avenue. Public Utilities was there, building inspectors were there, the whole damn group was there. I got accused of hooking up, an illegal hookup to a power. Service been in the building for 50, 52, 53 years. I've never lived there. Didn't put the service in, but there was an illegal tap put in. Well, policeman chose not to arrest me because I didn't derive any benefit from it. Public Utilities or the building inspection department, someone authorized someone else, I don't know who did it, but they took a sawzall, cut service right off the side of the building. Not a kiss my ass or how do you do. Didn't ask my permission or anything else. 4 people got homeless. I put them up in motels. And quite frankly, what was done 50 years ago, I could have corrected in about an hour and a half. Not with a pipe cut off the side of the building and thrown away. Couldn't have done that. They made sure I couldn't have done it. But I wasn't at fault, derived no benefit from this whatsoever, and I don't know of any place, maybe Russia, China, or someplace else in this world, that you can come over to a house, whether I'm legal, illegal, or whatever, and cut the service off the side of the belt. And that was a pipe service, 2-inch, like that. Just cut it right off the edge of the house. And maybe it was a policeman, I don't know, took the pipe with him. So I gave you folks a letter. I don't know if anybody read it. But expenses come to the tune of $16,000. That's for me. Motels, expenses. Luckily in hell, I had a contractor that actually found some equipment. Otherwise, they were talking about the end game being a month and a half away. I did manage to get a service put back on the thing. That was in November. Now, I don't think it was my fault at all. And I'm looking for compensation from the city of Norwich for cutting the service off the side of the damn house, putting 4 people homeless. They spend more money than that on homeless people in this city. I know, because I'm a landlord. I got people looking for houses all the time. I don't want this to happen to anybody else in this city, ever. We can do better than that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chris Portland.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm a person who benefited the most probably from living in Norwich my entire life, with the exception of college and in the military. When I was 6 years old, Steve Armstrong, a family friend, took me under his wing, taught me how to play tennis up at the rec field. I was up there for other things, swimming, basketball, baseball. Went through the Norwich educational system, got a very good education, came back, worked as a guidance counselor, school psychologist, and a coach. And Steve Armstrong, who was integral in getting the clay courts all set up and ready to play, and I was part of that committee to help him out. Unfortunately, he gave me the history before he passed away and said that back in the 50s, Norwich Free Academy owned all of that property up on the rec field area, and they deeded it over to the city of Norwich for $1, with the understanding that Norwich Free Academy students or athletes would have usage of all of these facilities as a priority, and then the rest of the public would get to use the facilities. Worked out great for the baseball, softball, basketball areas. The park was great for running cross-country. However, the tennis courts, I don't know if you know anything about clay courts, they need daily maintenance. And I started working on a committee, as soon as I got back from the military, and was working at Kelly Middle School, or Kelly Junior High. And we got grieved by the employees of the recreation department. Said they were taking hours away from them. Well, they didn't have hours available to them. The bottom line is this. Those courts went to seed. You couldn't play on them for the last 6 or 8 years. They're no longer clay courts. They're just mud and dirt and sand. We need those 6 courts back. I'm currently coaching the girls' tennis team at NFA, have been the last few years, and we really need to get those courts back. If any of you have any children that are playing sports, and all of a sudden the game or the match, our tennis matches, go into the early hours, mosquitoes are coming out, parents are complaining that their kids in AP classes don't have the time to do their homework. We really need to get those 6 courts back. And I know it's a lot of money, but $650,000 is a lot of money for 6 courts. And we have enough money for, I think, 4 courts right now. I checked with Cheryl Hansen at the Recreation Department. But I would hope that you would somehow find the money to install those 6 courts so that we didn't have to worry about the kids staying there late and missing valuable study time and possibly picking up Triple E. Appreciate your thinking about it. I know it's always been a tight budget, but the city of Norwich hasn't put anything into those tennis courts for years. We did all the work ourselves. Steve Armstrong put in a lot of his own money, and I think it's time now for the city to stand up and see that these courts are put back in so that we can teach tennis to the young kids in Norwich again and have them safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Tom Brown, please. No? Okay, thank you. That completes those who signed up ahead of time. Is there anyone else like to speak to the council on non-agenda items this evening? Yeah, please.
Beryl Fishbone, 19 Bliss Place. Budget's coming up, and especially the new people on the council, you're going to hear a lot of people asking for help. And it's always going to be immediate, it's always going to be important, and it's always going to break your heart to say no. But that's what I need you to do. This is the ARPA funds is the first time in a very long time, since the 50s, that the city has money to do some of the projects that we haven't had the money to do. Putting in sidewalks, repairing roads, repairing pipes, taking care of flooding. You knew I had to bring that up. But doing all those kinds of things that we just haven't had the money to do. And that's not planning just for today or tomorrow or even next week. That's planning for 20, 30 years down the road. When you leave here tonight, look at the sidewalks. Look where they are, and more importantly, look where they are not. As you get near a school, look to see if there are sidewalks leading to that school. Can you imagine kids living within, say, 6 houses, 10 houses, and they can't walk to school because there's no sidewalk? What does that tell us about our community? What does that tell us about our city? We need to change. We need to plan for that future 20 years, 30 years down the road. And that's tough. But I'm asking you to make those kinds of decisions and to do those kinds of things. Use what we have, develop it, and most importantly, look at the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd always like to speak to council on non-agenda items. Again, anyone like to address us on non-agenda items? Again, like to speak to us on non-agenda items at this time. If there is no one else, I then declare this to be closed at this time. Thank you all.
Petition and communication. An explanation of the resolutions regarding the transfer of certain real estate, motor vehicle, and personal property taxes into the suspense account.
This time, ask for a motion to receive. Report, please. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Presentation regarding the city manager's goal-setting meeting.
Thank you. It's the city manager, if you'd introduce our guest, please.
Yes, I have the pleasure of introducing Paul DeSalis. He's the principal of Decision Point LLC. Paul coordinated our 2 sessions on February 5th and the 10th on our annual goal-setting workshop. And Paul is here tonight to give an executive report on the results of the goal-setting session. So I'll turn it over to Paul at this point.
Good evening. First, thank you for allowing me to present to you this evening the work that you all did. It's a pleasure to see you in person, 3D versus just very linear, and we had those sessions back in February. So tonight, what I'd like to do is just, and I've handed to City Clerk, and I think you have in front of you the document that describes the work that you did. So my presentation tonight is more about giving you all a report on the work that you did. So this is not necessarily my report so much as it is your own. The only thing that I wanted to do this evening is just give you a little bit of some insight into what it is that you did decide to do and what it is that is left for you to decide, and perhaps some methods that you could use that would enable you to make those decisions. Because as you've heard this evening, I think from both the public and your own conversations, it is always a very, very difficult choice that you need to make as to how we can best serve the city that you're in and give them the services that actually are most beneficial for them. I want to personally thank all of you for the time that you did spend on those two days, just how well that you allowed me to help facilitate that conversation between you and allowed each of you to speak your minds and collaborate. A little earlier was talking about collaboration. So what I did see in both of those days was a real intent to learn from each other and listen to each other, as well as make some choices that were clearly in line with what you felt were the best things that you could provide for the city. So I think the population really should just be aware of just how that particular session did actually unfold. So thank you for the opportunity to work with you folks. It was a pleasure, and the report that you have in front of you is a little bit of a summation of all the work that you did. Now it's divided into a couple of different sections. One of them at the very beginning is more of a summary of the information that you did do, but a little direction as well as to how you can take it to the next steps. On the back end of the report is in fact an appendix that is all of the actual notes that were taken in real time in both of those sessions. But what I wanted to spend some time with you this evening is more or less going over the pieces and parts that are really important are the actual goals themselves. Because at this point, what you decided to do was identify some very specific areas, very specific goals that you considered for the strategic plan. But essentially, some of them would require you to spend a little more time to decide where exactly do they fall. So that is, your work that you've done, and in collaboration, as you know, with the second session, with the various members of various departments in the city who also provided their deliberate ideas about how they can best use monies that might be available to the city to actually execute in their individual departments. And just to give a sense to the program as it unfolded, first things is that basically what the strategic plan I think still involves is that discipline of picking and choosing. It's a difficult thing to do. There's no magic bullet that basically allows you to have all the resources that you need in order to accomplish everything that you would like to do. So it's always going to be a disciplined act, always going to be a choice that pleases some and doesn't please others, but at the same time, that's the role that you've chosen to pick the things that you believe have the greatest potential to bring value to the city. So some of the things that, as we unfolded, looked at, the three things that we wanted to speak to, as you know, is like where did you see yourselves now? Where did you want to go, and how did you want to get there? We went a deep dive into all of that, a little bit more in terms of, just what were some of the things that could, in fact, interfere with produce some benefit to the strategic plan, looking at how COVID had interfered, how various strategic plans had been put aside because of various things that had happened within either government or outside your control, and whether it was time to regain those at this point, or whether it was time to move on to new areas. What you ended up also looking at was more around looking at a strategic plan more from a corporate kind of methodology of looking at where it is that you actually have some real strengths as a city that are attractive to have people basically come to the city, or people who are here now getting the most benefit from it. And your decisions were to look around what were those strengths, what were the opportunities that you could actually get from there, and then the discipline. Which ones would you actually pick and choose to do moving forward? What you should do at this point is, is looking at the list of various options that get presented to you, is do two things. One is, and one I've done some of that work for you, which is identify each one of those goals as more of a real SMART goal. So very, very specific things that we're asking people to do with some very specific outcomes that are measurable and things that we want to make sure that they get accomplished. So it's not some wish or objective, but an actual goal. And the other thing was, how do you pick and choose from the ones that you actually looked at and described? And the second half of this is where you look at what would be the kind of things that you would choose one over another, because it is a discipline, and it is a difficult choice to make. And I guess the best way for you to decide on which ones you should actually finally adopt and which ones you should adopt for another time or not at all is whether or not it has some real benefit that you will get. And it's the question that we ask is, basically, what will be gained if we actually do that, and what will be lost if we don't? And that pretty much, the minute you start answering those kind of questions that way, it does give you a great deal of ability to pick and choose and use that discipline, because as speakers have said before, you can't please everyone. But if you look at what you can gain and what might be lost by not moving in a certain direction, that will give you the direction you need, I think, to finalize that strategic plan and pick and choose the ones that you're going to move towards. Finally, in that first day, what we did is, in fact, identify at least a few things that were more big burner now as opposed to later. There wasn't a final list, but it was certainly at least a working list, and I think that's kind of where you ended the process at this point, because it's one final, 2/3 of the way there. Final third is to actually make that final choice mechanism. And what you did, what we talked about, is making sure that you identified which things would you be willing to do now. And we define now as within the near term, so within the next 12 or 18 months, what would be some things that you would move towards? And so you were forced to kind of, at least on the first brush of the list of items that you had to choose from, pick and choose things that would in fact be near term, things that might be next year or the year after that even. And so, at least on your first thought through, this is the kind of list that you ended up with, and put it into like 3 different themes or buckets. Things that would be more for development, things that would be more for, let's say, resident livelihood, things that makes the work, the living here a worthwhile thing and something that people can embrace. So community, and but it wasn't completely filled in terms of what we're going to do, because we had yet work to do in terms of identifying some very specific areas to move towards. The one thing that you did identify was kind of like as a result of my asking you again to think about, well, what are you going to do new? If we are in fact going to do things now, and a strategic plan and goals for a strategic plan always require you to think about what are you going to do different? Not what you're going to do the same, but what are you going to do different? Because already what you're doing will have a certain outcome. You can almost predict what will take place in 12 or 18 months if things continue to be funded the way they're funded. What might you expect? So for a strategic plan, it has to include some of that. But more importantly, what it has to include is what will you do different? What are you going to work towards in a different way or approach differently in order to move and get a different accomplishment? So we ask you to kind of think, well, what are you going to do different? And this was the list of things, that, at least at the early stage of our conversation, that clearly came out in terms of what you would want to do in order to get more funding, to get more collaboration, to include more of the individuals in the city, to include more of the businesses in the city. What could you do? And that would be the focus that would give you the direction to look at the individual goals that you had. So what I've done is given you a list of, from all of the things that we actually did discuss, a distilled list of all of the things in terms of SMART goal language is really what those are. But what makes them smart is, at at the very top, it's more or less, you have to start the sentence off with one of the time constraint kind of thinking. So is it that by the end of this year, or by the end of next year, or by some point in time, identify each one of these? And I think this is the work that the council needs to do individually and collectively, and perhaps the city manager as well, where he has the authority within the budgets that he's already working with to decide which ones of these would he put by the end of this year, by the end of next year, whatever the time frame that makes the most sense. Is this a back burner, or is this a now? Is this a this year, or is this something that we should continue to do moving forward? So I've written pretty much all from the work that you submitted, from the comments you made, from all of the conversation that we had, distilled it down to a list of very specific goals that are potentially there. So some of them, for this, are written more in terms of, as an example, for the grant writer. Not just hiring a grant writer, because that's more of an objective than it is a goal. A goal would be what we end up expecting that grant writer to do. So, and that's the model that I think that you want to be considering moving forward. So each one of them is just not an objective like hiring a grant writer, but hiring them and having an expectation about what they might bring to the table. So it might be in terms of total monies that they actually are able to contribute, in terms of finalized grants, numbers of grants submitted in a particular year. Whatever the thing that you expect them to do is more important than just actually hiring them. Because hiring them is an objective, and then the goal is more like, what do you expect to gain from them? Kind of like, I think, with a number of different items that came up, that's exactly the direction that we wanted you to formulate your thoughts. So that's what this list is pretty much directed at, with the first part of the sentence needing to be filled in by the members of the council and by the city manager, so that you can take a look at which ones you think you can adopt now and which ones you perhaps want to put off to another period of time. And obviously that would depend on how much, I think the numbers of where you get collected resources were, in fact, obviously the federal monies that are available for you, should you actually go after and get those, and how you go about doing that. And also then from, let's say, the grant writers, an example, but the collection of monies, where you could get additional resources of revenue, was really a lot of your focus, because then if that is achieved, then at that point you obviously can do a lot more things that you wanted to do. Without that, then it made the list of possible choices smaller. So that was a real part of the goal setting, so much as dividing exactly what is the new stuff that you're going to go about doing. Also were priorities that were identified in a previous discussion, and you reaffirmed your interest in, although the list from that particular document had several different outcomes and suggestions for the strategic plan. These three seem to resonate as things that you were actively either doing, involved in right now, or want to continue having some execution on each one of these, again, to move the ball forward in the strategic plan for this year and next. The goal setting for the second session was, again, identified with where are we now, where are we going, but here a little bit more was directed at very specific interests that the individuals had, because now we were working with department heads, and they were contributing. First, you were contributing what your thoughts were for their departments, and we were getting information from them as to how they saw their departments and how they saw their needs, and wanted to present to you at least a chance to influence the conversation that you all would have, with information they had, with suggestions they had, with willingness to tell you what they thought the best use of monies were. So as a result of your telling them what your thoughts were and they're giving their input, they had a chance to influence your conversation and influence the outcomes that you had and the decisions that you were making. So again, what we did is look at the list of potential decisions or goals that you could from the discussion, from both your discussion with them and their discussion with you, what would be likely, potential very specific goals that you would adopt in the year to come, and those that you might pick for not this year, but for another point in time. And again, it's just due diligence at this point. It's the final mile. It's the final few yards, to get to the end zone, is actually picking specifically at this point which of these fall into that for now, and which ones might be a little bit more, by your agreement, a little bit less in this year, a little less now, but moving forward. But all of them were ideas that clearly had some airtime, some interest on both your part, individually or collectively on occasion. So clearly it's not something that should be ignored into the future at all, but at least identified for where might there be a time when you could do those kinds of things. Again, more of the 12 to 18 month on various departments. So we took them by, as individually, they actually made presentations for their specific departments. We separated it out into the very different departments in both fire, safety, both fire and police, Department of Social Services and Human Services. And each one of them basically, again, has a list of suggestions, and also those that you clearly had some interest in as a team, as listening to the potential. So the question is, at this point, where do we go from here? And the where do we go from here, number one, is in fact to revisit that list and decide which of those are the by a certain time, next 12 to 18 months, beyond that, whatever that might be, and make an adoption around which ones you wanted to do. You clearly had some that were very upfront, very specific, and you wanted to go after, and it was more about the revenue generation piece, and also about where you wanted to improve both the waterfront and things of that nature. All of them are in there for you to make a final decision as to which ones you wanted to move forward with. So pretty much it's, make the final choices is really what is left for you to do, with a coherent list in front of you with a very specific mission to decide which ones actually fall into this particular year's strategic plan and which ones might fall into a future year's plan, but not necessarily for now. And so to make those choices, and it's the old buy a certain time, finish, actually start the sentences in order to make sure that you have some very specific goals that you would adopt and hold yourself clearly to, and set them as more than just objectives, but real goals. As I mentioned with the grant writer's example, it's an objective, it's not a goal, but it is something that takes you to that space where you can make it a goal. And turn the objectives into goals and be more specific, and obviously give the people that have the responsibility the three-legged stool, both the responsibility, the accountability, and whatever authority they need to make sure that they get that done. And that pretty much is the presentation to the strategic plan. It's pretty much, like I said, it's not my report so much as it is your own. It is the work that you've done. It's the final, like I said, the final mile that you have to do at this point is identify which of the various things that you participated in developing are actual things that you want to pursue going forward.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the time working with us in the presentation today. I'll ask if there are questions, but I would also, I guess, make a recommendation that perhaps the council should have another workshop amongst ourselves and go through all of this particular document, and look at establishing a timeline. Those that are within our reach, perhaps within this remaining short portion of this fiscal year and the next full fiscal year as well, acknowledging that some of the items on that list are, some of them are already happening now with potential investors and possibilities that are taking place within the city, but also being keenly aware of cost factors and balancing them out with the needs of the budget and everything else. But other than that, that's my 2 cents. Are there questions for him at this moment, please? No? No? We're all set. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you. And again, real pleasure working with all of you, and I wish you well on making those final discipline decisions. I know none of them are easy, but I think it's in good hands. So good luck and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
City Manager's report.
Thank you. This is the city manager's report for March 21st, 2022. Meetings attended were with state representatives and legislators, Southeastern Council of Governments, Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, Region 4 Emergency Support Plan, NPU City Coordination Meeting, Parking Commission, and meeting with the fire chiefs. Through March 18th, Norwich Public Works has responded to 16 weather events this season. While many of these events did not produce significant amounts of snow, they did require treatment of the roads. Many of the storms occurred on weekends and nights, requiring a fairly significant amount of overtime. NPW also plowed and treated the Dodge Stadium lot for the COVID testing. They have used nearly 1,800 tons of salt to date for a material cost of $75,000. On Friday, March 11th, NPW assisted with the community cleanup, which Jason Balukas of NFA had organized as an in-service afternoon for teachers and staff. NPW provided gloves and bags and then collected the trash bags in the downtown area and along the Heritage Trail. The City of Norwich Departments of Community Development, Planning and Neighborhood Services and Human Services, in collaboration with the Norwich Housing Authority, have been working towards the development of an affordable housing plan, which is due to the state of Connecticut by June 1st, 2022. Input is requested from residents, property owners, and other stakeholders at a community meeting that will be held on Wednesday, April 6th at 6 p.m. at City Hall, room 319, or via Zoom. Details are available on the city's website at norwichconnecticut.org. The recreation spring session has begun with over 40 classes, including youth yoga, safe sitter babysitting, and an April vacation camp. Scholarships are available for all classes and programs. Please contact the Recreation Department for more information. The 2022 Neighborhood Assistance Act program proposal applications are available through the State of Connecticut Department of Revenue Services and the city's website. The city manager's office will be accepting applications until June 1st, 2022, with a public hearing scheduled for June 20th to ensure the applications can be submitted to the state before the July 1st deadline. Thank you to employees that donated to the 2022 United Way campaign and to Deanna Rhodes, Director of Planning and Neighborhood Services, for her assistance with this year's campaign. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, John. Other questions, please? Alderman Wilson.
So first, I would like to say thank you to the Jason Bakulis from NFA for, this is their second community cleanup. They did one with the students last spring, and this is something I had the privilege of helping him coordinate, that they look to make something annual that they do in the fall with both staff and students. I think the big picture here is that this is an opportunity for those that may not live in the city but work here, educate our students and are a part of our community, to give back on a bigger scale. So I want to thank them for wanting to be involved in beautifying and making Norwich their community as well that they work in. The next thing, I'm just wondering, are we planning for this stakeholders community meeting, more outreach as far as individuals knowing about it other than the city website for April 6th?
I think there will be some inserts in the local publications and discussion of that, and an interview with Human Services and redevelopment to further disseminate the information.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, it's one of the things that I always continuously say is our effort to get the information out to more individuals, the better outcome we get, the better we make the city, but the more people feel invested in the work that is done here in the city. So that's one of the reasons why always tough on it. And then my last thing would be knowing we're coming up on the quarter. Do we expect to have any reports as far as progress on the projects from the ARPA funds from the fall? I know one of the parts and provisions that we inserted was quarterly reporting as to updates on progress and whatnot. So is there any, there are reports forthcoming from some of the organizations and entities on where they are with planning or any of those things?
And the answer is yes, it will occur in May. We'll first do where we are with the Phase 1 ARPA allocations, and then we'll introduce the Phase 2 ARPA allocations in May also. As you might recall, May is the date of the second installment of our ARPA funds, so that'll be an appropriate timing to review the ones that exist now and to review the proposed ones in the Phase 2.
Thank you. And then the subsequently, from that May deadline, they will continuously give quarterly reports as to their progress and update?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions of the city manager? Alderman Singh?
Thank you. Thank you, John, for the report, and thank you, Deanna, for assisting in the United Way campaign. My question is less of a question and more of the information, actually. The 2022 Neighborhood Assistance Act program proposal, if you can just, in some simplified terms, tell what it's all about, just for the public understanding, so they understand what's related in it.
Yes, the program is actually initiated by the Department of Revenue Services at the state of Connecticut. And what it allows for is entities to initiate funding for a particular project and then receive tax credits for that. So it's an initiative to get civic involvement funding, and then also to benefit various agencies, programs to get funded through that mechanism. So there's actually no funding that takes place directly by city funds. It's really credit on your corporate taxes for funds initiated on behalf of the individual community projects.
But it's a state, basically, revenue.
Right, the state.
We are just
Yeah, because it's a state.
facilitating.
The state taxing segment of the state revenue service policy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Citizen comment on resolutions.
I declare citizen comment on the resolution on tonight's agenda to be open. There was again a sign-up sheet. The person first to sign up for this is Mr. Brian Kobolars.
Brian Kovalar, 16 Hobart Avenue. This time I'll give back some of the time that I took earlier. Thank you. All in all, I was impressed to see the lineup of candidates that are being submitted for the different committees. especially since you know I had a personal interest in it. I'm especially happy to endorse, after seeing again the report last week or 2 weeks ago from the CMEC representative for the city. An exceptional job, and want to see that continue in the future. When I saw the one for Global City and the different events, it reminded me again of all of the events that I helped produce in many years in the past, many of those multicultural, as I mentioned before, including establishing the very first multicultural event here in the city. We had on the poster over 14 languages with the word celebrate to end up being inclusive to as many as we could. And that is one thing that troubles me, is that for the last 15 years, I've been trying to encourage the inclusion of the Asian Pacific Islander population here in Norwich. That's over 6% of our 39,000 and some odd residents of the city. They deserve to be recognized, and in the preceding years, we have not been doing that. That needs to change. The other thing I would like to see brought in under Global City, I don't know if it consists of an event like is being mentioned here, but the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. There is a global outreach in embracing that culture that is being destroyed. Local businessmen are trying to do their best to end up bringing that to the public's light and provide support. Global City should not just be festivals, it should also be support for these different cultural groups that are in desperate need for it. They're part of our community. We need to act. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bob Staley?
Thank you very much. My name is Bob Staley. I live at 18 Montgomery Lane in Norwich, and I'm chairman of the Norwich Public Utilities Board of Commissioners. I wanted to speak tonight to do two things. One is to thank the Nominations Committee of Representative Alderman Wilson, Alderwoman Burdo, and Gould for nominating unanimously Stu Peel for another term. Stu Peel has been a terrific member. He's been on the board for 6 years. He has never missed a meeting. He is always involved. He contributes. Secondly, he is a principal engineer at Electric Boat. As you probably understand, the work at Norwich Public Utilities involves some technical things. And he is a great asset to the board because of his engineering background. And thirdly, we have really tried at NPU to involve all members of the board on an equal basis and to hand off responsibilities to them to work as a group. And you know, one of the aspects of that is that our bylaws limit chairmanship to 3 consecutive years. My 3rd year is gone. I will be up tomorrow, actually. And, you know, I think we need continuity on the board. I think Stuart gives us that. I think that we'll be electing a new chairman. I think there's a chance it will be him. And so I would ask the council to listen to the unanimous recommendation of the nominating committee and appoint him today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So anyone else like to address the council on agenda items this evening? Yes, please.
Deanna Rhodes, Director of Planning and Neighborhood Services for the City of Norwich, and I just wanted to speak with you very quickly about Resolution 15 regarding the interpretation of the cannabis retail for hybrid and for traditional retailers of cannabis in the City of Norwich. The Planning Department appreciates clarification from the council regarding this matter for the zoning enforcement officer, and encourage you to adopt this resolution tonight. It's helpful to us and helpful to NCDC. Kevin Brown is not here tonight, but he wanted me to mention to you that he is very much in support of this resolution as well. Once you pass this resolution, if the council decides to move forward with an ordinance or zoning regulations to clarify further, I'm here to assist you with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now anyone else like to address this on resolutions this evening? Any further comment on resolutions this evening? Is there any further comment on resolutions this evening? Seeing none, thank you for your comments and declare this portion of our meeting, we close this hearing. Thank you.
New business resolutions. Number 1, relative to reappointments of regular members and an alternate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Entertain a motion, please, to bring this to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Thank you. For members who are here in the audience and anyone viewing through technology, the people to be reappointed as regular members of the Zoning Board of Appeals are Mr. David Martin, Robert Phoenix, and Dorothy Travers, and to be reappointed as an alternate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals is Mr. Greg Schlop. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 2, relative to a reappointment to the Norwich Public Utilities Commissioners Sewer Authority.
Motion, please, to bring it forward. Alderman Wilson, second Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Alderwoman Gould?
Thank you, Mayor. I will be supporting this resolution to reappoint Stu Peel to the Public Utilities Commission and Sewer Authority. Mr. Peel has proven himself as an outstanding commissioner. After the fallout of Derbygate, Mr. Peel was part of the commission that brought transparency and professionalism to the Board of Commissioners, making sure that all aspects of business conducted by the board was in the best interest of the ratepayers. He helped to restore the reputation of Norwich Public Utilities, both locally and regionally. He has advocated for projects that make sound business sense. He also recognized the talent and ability of Chris LaRose and supported and advocated for him to be named general manager. He has advocated for distinct changes to how CMEC does business, and he's seen those changes put into place. His professional acumen as an engineer brings an additional level of expertise to the makeup of the board, and he is not afraid to speak his mind. I'd like to congratulate him, and I hope the rest of the council will be supporting your reappointment. You have earned the respect of your colleagues and of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. Again, it was a pleasure doing the interviews of Mr. Peel, getting to know him on a more personal level as well as professional. The insight that he provided during the interview was second to none. And, you know, I will say I want to thank the others that applied. The interest, the level that he has shown, and just the level of expertise the entire board of commissioners has is amazing. And I want to thank you and congratulate you for wanting to continue to serve this community. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further comment? Yes, Alderman Berto.
I just want to piggyback on what Alderman Wilson and Alderwoman Gould said. It was a pleasure interviewing him. His professionalism, his energy, and his knowledge, I think, will be an asset to the board.
Thank you very much. Is there further comment? Yes, President Pro Tem Alderman DeLucia, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep my comments short. I've made it clear to the members of my caucus and to the members of the Board of Commissioners at the utility that there have been very few times in the history of Norwich Public Utilities where strong leadership was as important as it is right now, and that continuity of leadership is accomplished by this appointment. So I think the utility is headed in the right direction. I think that the things that are on our horizon, both near and short, are served by this reappointment. And I also believe that this current board and the changes that have been made under the current chairman, Mr. Staley, have done a great service to the residents of the city and the taxpayers. So I thank you all for your work, and I'll close with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there further comment? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderman Berto.
Yes.
Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf.
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia.
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 3, relative to an appointment to the Building Code Board of Appeals.
Entertain motion, please. Alderman Wilson, second Alderwoman Gould, Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
I just want to thank Mr. Andrews for stepping forward and being willing to serve as a member of this board. It's always good to see a new face, regardless of party affiliation, wanting to be a part of the community, which is something we have been striving for here on the council. So best of luck, and thank you for stepping forward.
Thank you, sir. Is there further comment? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto.
Yes.
Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf.
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia.
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 4, relative to an appointment to the ratepayer representative to CMAQ.
Motion, please. Bring it forward. Alderwoman Gould, second Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Yes, President Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Anybody that was watching or listening in and the members of the council heard the compliment I gave David when he gave his report. I'll just echo that he is doing just one heck of a job for us as our ratepayer representative, and it's a pleasure and a pleasure to support this, and also at the same time a sincere thanks that he's willing to continue with that work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Alderwoman Gould.
I would also like to chime in. David Eggleston didn't have a playbook to go by. He was the first ratepayer representative from Norwich. So he took on this challenge rather willingly and has done an amazing job in especially reporting back to the council. His information that he provides with us is detailed and concise. He's very engaged in what he's doing at CMAQ. We appreciate the fact that his employer gives him the time to fulfill his role with CMAQ, and I'm just thrilled that he is willing to continue serving us for another 2 years. I really appreciate what he's doing. And like Alderman DeLucia said, he's doing a fantastic job. So thank you, David.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto.
Yes.
Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf.
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia.
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 5, regular to reappointments of regular members and appointments of regular members to the Ethics Commission.
A motion, please, to bring this to the floor. Alderman Singh, second by Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Again, I want to thank the individuals, Karen, Scott, Robin, Robert and Lori for continuing to want to serve the community. A special thanks to Scott for making sure we did get the reappointment applications for everyone. So appreciate their willingness to continue to serve.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 6, relative to reappointments of regular members and alternate member to the Commission for Persons with Disabilities.
Motion, please bring it to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Seeing none, for members of the public, those being appointed as regular members are Mark Marcy and Julie Menders, and also being appointed as a regular member of the Person Commission on Disabilities is Ms. Joanne Filbert. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 7, relative to reappointments of regular members to the Rec Advisory Board.
Motion, please, to the floor. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
I want to continue to thank Ms. Julie Cagle for wanting to serve on the Rec Advisory. It's been a pleasure serving with her the last 2 years, and I look forward to her leadership as chair of that Recreational Advisory Board over the next few years. So thank you for stepping forward again.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 8, relative to reappointment of regular members and an alternate member to the Personnel and Pension Board.
Motion to bring it to the floor. Alderman Wilson, second by Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
I want to thank both Ms. Hayes and Ms. Francis for stepping forward and continuing to serve during their last term. They were pivotal in helping with the bond that was passed and executed this year. So thank you guys for your service.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Alderwoman Berto.
I just want to thank Ms. Hayes and Ms. Francis for stepping up to serve, and I look forward to them serving their term.
Thank you. Further discussion, Alderwoman Gould.
I just want to clarify it, that the person being reappointed as an alternate is Frank Gavigan and not
Francis.
Frank Gavigan.
So
Thank
it's the
you.
name on the,
The name says Francis on the thing.
It's the legal name.
On the resolution,
Yeah.
it says
It says-
Francis.
It says
Francis Gavigan.
That's the name?
That is his name.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 9, relative to an appointment to the Senior Affairs Commission.
Motion, please bring it to the floor. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderman Singh. Is there discussion? Seeing none, for the members of the public, the person being appointed Senior Affairs Commission is Ms. Joanne Filbert. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 10, relative to the aggregate sum representing motor vehicles and personal property taxes on the grand list October 1st, 2018, being transferred to the suspense account.
Motion, please, to bring it to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderman Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 11, relative to placing in the suspense account certain real estate taxes.
Motion to bring it to the floor, please. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 12, relative to holding a public hearing on June 20th, 2022 to review applications and receive comments relative to the Neighborhood Assistance Act.
Motion, please, to the floor. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 13, relative to veterans organizations sponsoring events during the 2022 calendar year.
Motion to bring it to the floor, please. Alderwoman Gould, second by Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Seeing none, just for members of the public here and anyone viewing, this resolution contains events to be held on or for Vietnam Veterans Day, April 30th, Memorial Day, Parade and Program, May 30th, Bastille Day on July 14th, that honors the 15 French soldiers buried in the cemetery in Norwich Town, and Korean War Veterans Day program to be held Saturday, July 30th, an annual Tribute to America program that is still to be announced, the date and such. A Veterans Day program, November 11th at Post 594 on 30 Connecticut Avenue, and Pearl Harbor Day to be held on Wednesday, December 7th outside the steps here at City Hall. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 14, relative to proposed global city events during the 2022 calendar year.
Motion to the floor, please. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderman Wilson.
I will say it is wonderful to see the large list of events taking place around the different cultures and groups here in the city of Norwich. I will say that, you know, this is not the end-all, be-all. There are groups that will continue to come to Global City and plan events as they continue their outreach. I think it's great to see that we're moving back in a positive direction of more activity and life downtown throughout the upcoming spring, summer, and early fall. The one thing that I hope us as a city having these events, I would love to see, us have booths promoting job opportunities, and most importantly, different boards and commission opportunities at the various events in the city. So it's great that we have the dates, but it's even more important and imperative that we figure a way to continue to be a part of it to make our city reflect as a goal the community that it serves. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion? I would only add one thing. This Friday is a new event, and that is raising the Greek independence flag ceremony at 8:30 outside here, the steps of City Hall. All are invited to attend. It will be a brief ceremony, but it is something new to the list. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
15, relative to determining the most appropriate comparison of similar use in the Norwich zoning regs for the cannabis establishments.
Motion, please, bring it to the floor. Alderman Singh, second by Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn by Alderwoman Gould. Is there a second? Alderwoman Berto. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank you all.